If you want a gym or you need a gym, this is your guy.
Hi, I'm Mike Arce, and I've spent most of my career in the fitness industry and helping those in it succeed. And after helping over 2,000 studios and 50 different franchises within the industry, I've learned a lot about what it takes to be successful. Here, I'll teach your studio how to advertise, how to sell, retain more members, increase profits, and become an overall better business owner in the space. And I share it all with you here. Welcome to the GSD Show. Susan, what's up, and welcome to the GSD Show.
Hi.
So I'm excited to have you on, especially after talking with you out in the hallway and learning that you actually have listened to the GSD episodes that we've had in the past.
Yes, I've caught several, and I always learn something. I love them.
I love it. Perfect. I know people are going to learn a lot today. We actually had you fly in from Chicago today, where your two studios are based, and it was.
Well, I traded 32-degree weather for 75.
It's a good trade.
Yeah,
it's a great trade. It's a great trade. You can't go wrong. And we met in Chicago, actually,
we did, yeah.
where it was cold. And you and I got a chance to talk, I don't know, for an hour or so.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation. I knew you'd be able to provide value. So you came in today. You just did about an hour's worth of trainings in our Loud Rumor virtual training program for fitness studios that can learn how to be a better business, run a better business. And it was so great. Now we got you here in the GSD Show podcast booth.
Doing it all today.
Doing it all, right? Because you've just got a lot to share. And it was really good. And it was stuff that I think fitness studio owners, I mean, if they could just make some of the tweaks that you were talking about, they would just skyrocket much better than they're doing. So for anyone listening in live, just know you can call 480-750-9774 if you have any questions throughout the show. Also, you could check out loudrumor.com to get more resources like this to learn how to run a bigger, better fitness studio. And while you're watching, feel free to like and comment to be able to ask any questions so we can answer throughout the way. And if you really like the show, go ahead and share it so more people can get value. And lastly, subscribe to the GSD Show and leave a review. Something we're doing now is we're going to start reading reviews live. So
nice.
If you leave a review, we'll say your name, shout out your name, and what you really get out of the show.
Can I review my own show?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yes. Okay. So, Susan, you've been in the industry for a while now, and you've been able to also consult a lot of businesses, and you've been around a bunch of fitness studio owners because you serve as the president on a board, and you're able to really see what a lot are doing. And what has been the pattern that you've caught? What are some areas that you're like, man, this is what the most successful are doing, and here's what the least successful are doing or not doing? Like, what are some 2 or 3 things that you notice are big differentiators?
Sure. I think one of the things I see a lot is that people get into fitness because they love fitness, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes they get into it thinking that love of fitness, I think that catchphrase of, live out your passion, do your passion, they follow that, and then there's not the same follow through on understanding the business side. And you can love yoga, you can love barre, you can love any form of fitness and, throw yourself into that passion, but it's not truly a business if you're not running it like a business.
Right.
And so that's the scary part I see sometimes where, people have opened a studio, they have hired people, they're running classes, but they're really not looking at the numbers. If I ask them, what's your monthly revenue? What's your profit? What are you making off of this item every day? What's your margin? Some of those things that to me, I think are kind of simple from a business standpoint to be talking to people who can't answer that. And then of course my heart goes out to them and I want to help and I want to fill that gap and help them understand, even though you might love this aspect of fitness, let's turn it into an actual business where you not only make money, but you can pay yourself.
Right.
So,
People that have followed the show, they've heard me I'm not a fan of a lot of Instagram quotes that you see out there. I think a lot of them are made by people that haven't even experienced what they're talking about.
Right.
So like one quote is, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. Like, I love what I do, but I work pretty hard.
Right.
And because I want it to be better, right? Kobe Bryant worked hard. Right. But he wanted to be better. And so, yes, I love fitness. Great. So I love what I do. But guess what? Loving fitness means you can go work out, and that's awesome. But you may not know how to run a business, and people love whatever they're good at, right?
Right.
And you're good at whatever you learn and train in. And so if you don't like running a business, it's probably because you're not good at it. I've yet to meet somebody that knows how to run a business well that doesn't love business.
Right.
Yeah. So it comes down to that. So what are some of the areas in business that you think they're most weakest in, like some commonalities?
Oh, the numbers for sure.
And what do you mean by that?
And some of those that I was listing out, just what are you making on a daily basis? How do you know that you're going to make your target for the month? Do you have a target for the month?
A lot of them don't.
What's your goal? You don't have a
of,
goal?
a lot of them don't know what their goals are. And when I ask a lot of studio owners, how many active members do you have on recurring right now, or what's your monthly recurring, they don't know that number.
Right. And you've got to know that number. You've got to know how many people you're retaining every month, how many people you're losing. So what's your net gain on your membership? What's your net gain on your auto pay?
Talk about that, net gain. Tell me what you mean by that.
So who are you keeping each month and who are you losing? So when you have cancellations or you have pauses, and then also once you've been open a year, seasonally, how do you anticipate that? So that you're not just playing victim, like, I'm trying to think, like, November's always a bad month for us. Like, stop saying that. Make it a good month. And you can't make those leaps until you have a shift in your mentality and you go from, say, somebody who owns a yoga studio, bar studio, let's just say fitness in general, you can't be making those mindset shifts until you go from I'm a really good instructor or I love fitness to I'm going to run a fitness business that pays me.
Right, 100%. And attrition, no matter what, you're going to have it, right? Like, it doesn't matter what business you're in. Disneyland has people that say, I'm never coming back here. Right? So no matter what, you're going to lose members. We lose members, you lose members. One of the ways that you can always look at generating revenue or getting more business, and I'm sure you've already focused on this too, is getting paused members to come back. Like people that are no longer there, but used to work out with you to come back.
For sure.
Probably have that, right? So here's an area that we really wanted to improve that, right? Because it's real money, it's real business. So,
well, they've liked you once before.
100%.
And sometimes when you look at the notes of why somebody trailed off, it's not because they don't like you, or sometimes it's not something catastrophic. It's an easy win back, and like you said, it's why are we not pursuing that more than for us? It seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, it's easy, and you want to improve retention numbers as much as you can. That's a number that can help. So what we started doing, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, and it's worked really well here, is the net gain, right? So let's say we add 30 members this month here at Loud Rumor, right? And easy numbers. Let's say you started with that month with 100 members, right? Easy numbers. At the end of that month, we say out of the 100 that we started that month with, how many are still with us? Let's say 90 are. Okay. So we would say, okay, we've retained 90% of the members that we started the month with, right? And then any of the new members we got, that doesn't count towards that. We only count but what we started doing was we've now had retention, sometimes 104%. I think that's our record, 104% retention. How do you get 104% retention? What we started doing is any old members that we're able to get to come back would actually count towards that, because it's not, we don't look at it as new business, we look at it as unpaused business, right? So let's say we lost 10, but we got 14 to come back, we'd now have 104% retention. So what we notice is we'd have account managers here that would lose a member and they'd be upset with that because they know it's going to affect their numbers. They're all scored that way. But now they'd work hard to go get some other members that did work with them to come back. And the retention numbers overall as a company are better, but also individually on each person's scorecard are better too. So it's been really cool because it makes the retention numbers look good. We obviously know what the net gain is when you don't include that, but it's great to have real strong focus on getting old members to come back, and we've seen more than ever over the last 6 months.
The other thing I like about that too is when you think about your pipeline and you think about how hard you work to make a cold lead a warm lead, the money that goes into that. And then once somebody has been a client with you, assuming it wasn't a catastrophic separation, that person's still a very, very warm lead.
Absolutely.
So I think our tendency sometimes is to continue to market and throw money at bringing in entirely new people, when you could probably give a third of that effort and win back what I would call a warm or maybe even still a hot lead. So I love that. I love that strategy that you have.
Yeah, I mean, and when I've met studio owners that have this as a process, we have it here where it's part of your activity chart. Today, reach out to X amount of paused members and just check in on them and see how life is going. See if there's anything we do. Sometimes it's even just sending a resource. So let's say you were a member here and you paused 3 months ago. I may say, hey, Susan, I remember the conversation you and I had about improving retention. I just saw this article that made me think of you. Check it out. I thought it'd help. Right? Simple as that. Now when they look at the other companies they're working with, they're like, they don't even do that for me, and I'm paying them. And same thing goes for the studio world. Hey, I remember you were really focused on finding some good healthy options to eat when you're traveling. I've heard this really cool article. It reminded me of you. Here it is.
I love that.
The current studio isn't even doing that, right? So it's just so easy to start winning back the hearts of people that maybe just wanted to check out a new trend. Oh, here's a new spin
absolutely.
studio.
Absolutely.
And get them to come back home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, those are part of our retention tasks that we do on a regular basis, and we call it our win backs. So.
Love it. You call them win backs. That's a good, I think I may use that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So yeah, because we don't even have a term for it. We should probably.
Win backs. There you go.
There
I
you
named
go.
it for you.
So okay, so you talk about net gain, having these numbers, your net loss as well. So what about on the marketing side, marketing and sales? How do you feel, just by your overall gut, looking at a lot of the studios that you've been able to consult or just meet, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I am the man, I can go up there and speak on stage in front of 30,000 people on marketing. 1 is, what's marketing mean again? So where would you say the average lies?
Oh, the average? 2.5.
It's tough and so true.
What would you? I mean,
It's
you're the
true.
master, so what would you?
100%.
Would you put it 2.5?
Because they don't even understand the
Guys, we didn't
terminology.
talk beforehand, so.
No, I would say 2, 3 as well. Because a lot of them think they know what it is.
Yeah.
But they only know what they see, right? It's like the average, my mom, great example, right? I love my mother, but she doesn't really understand nutrition at the level that we all do. So I go over, and she's got carbs and carbs and carbs and carbs around the meat, right? So you got potatoes, then we got mac and
But
cheese.
it's gluten-free.
She'll say, no, worse. She got the bread. I go, oh, Mama, it's too much. I don't want to do the bread right now. It's fresh. I just bought it. I go, Mom, it doesn't mean it's healthier. And she's like,
Right.
like you know what I mean? Or like it's wheat bread.
Yeah.
Or, oh no, these are, I baked the potato. And
Yeah.
it's like, so, and it's just not fully understanding, but you hear enough stuff on Facebook. I think the same thing happens with marketing and sales. They just kind of see whatever they hear, and we all know Facebook information and posts is just random, erratic stuff, right? So, but when you really look at it, we just talked about this, I did an interview with our director of marketing, Patrick, and what we said is, you look at every great CEO, Elon Musk really understands marketing. I mean, you look at the way he does things,
Absolutely.
really understands marketing. Steve Jobs, right? Richard Branson, Henry Ford, all these people, Bill Gates, they understand marketing to the point where they can build a team, and they can also identify the difference between an agency that understands and an agency that just knows how to run an ad, right?
Absolutely.
2 different things. So when you're looking at the most successful and the least successful, or even in your studio, what are some of the metrics that you look for to determine if you're winning or losing in the marketing realm?
Sure. I mean, one of the biggest things I care about is where we are with our leads. So how many we're getting a month. I look at how many people do we want to close, and then how many do I need to bring in to have enough people in our pool to close.
Right.
So typically that's about 4 times in terms of membership sales.
Okay.
So I want 4 times the number of leads.
Because you're going to close 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little low on our side.
Now,
but
is
I
that
want
leads as a whole, meaning I'm including digital leads, I'm including referrals, I'm including walk-ins?
Everything.
So when you do it as a
Everything.
whole, that's why, right? Because the referrals and the walk-ins will help bring up the average. The
Right.
digital leads you're probably seeing closer to that 10, 15 mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at how many leads do I have coming into the pipeline? Is that feeding my pipeline well enough so that I can get to business at the end of that pipeline and close? And then what's my conversion rate? Because then I also want to see, as these people come in, are they qualified leads?
Right.
So if my leads aren't qualified, then I got to revisit what's going on with their ads. Are we serving up at the right places? Are we spending enough money? There's a lot of levers that then you have to go and look at, and of course those are conversations I have with my digital agency all the time.
How do
But
you
you have to be on top of it
100%.
in order to ask the right questions, because I think a lot of people
100%.
either, if they're doing it by themselves, they throw some stuff up and they're not looking at the metrics,
Right.
or they hand it over to somebody and they're paying a ton of money, they're paying a huge management fee every month, and then they're not checking in, they're not getting educated on, is my money worth it? Is it paying off? What's the ROI on this? And I think that's the other piece is, for me, when I go in and talk to a lot of studio owners, they're not spending enough on digital marketing.
Absolutely.
But then when they do invest, this is the kind of the cycle I've seen, they invest, they don't pay attention, they don't get educated, they don't hold their digital firm accountable, and then 3 months later they're like, oh, it totally wasn't worth it, I lost all that money.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, well,
I get that. I want to talk about that, but I want to go in order because there's 3 questions
Yeah,
I've got along what you just said. Number 1, qualified lead. How do you define it? Because there's qualified and there's quality, and I think people think they're both the same. So what's qualified to you?
So I was jumping around in the pipeline. In terms of a quality lead for us, means that they're local, they're somebody who lives close enough that they could come to our studio, actually
Right.
take classes there. We're not getting leads that are too far
20
out
miles
of
away,
our
15 miles
geographic
away. Right.
boundary. There are people who are willing to spend the type of dollars on boutique fitness. So it's not somebody who's only looking at a $24.99 a month gym. That's going to, those are hard people to sell because they're looking for something entirely different. So in that sense, you start to recognize that when you start having conversations with people. And then our ability to close really starts with, as those leads come in, hopefully the majority are quality leads, but we have to qualify those leads even further.
Right.
So for us, we don't have people booked directly into class as a prospect. We actually have a phone call with them first. We get them into an intro class, and then we have, you know, a sales process following that intro class. Actually, the sales process starts from the very beginning, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%.
But the whole point of that is to then, to your second question, to qualify that lead before they get into class, so that we're asking the questions about what are your goals, why Pure Barre now, some of those things that give us the information we need to know what is the membership that makes most sense for them, because I'm not interested in selling somebody something they're not going to use.
Right, I guess
So
it's a waste. And
I don't want to
just
sell
hurt
you an
your own.
unlimited membership if you tell me your goals are to mix it up once a month.
Right.
Sorry, that's, you know,
No,
so I have
100%.
to be aligned, and we have to be asking the right questions, and that's what we do to filter and qualify people and then book them into class.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about the show is that we've had people in like you, that they're just super experienced, but I think the reason that people like you are successful, the reason people like me are successful, we're always open to the idea of like, okay, well, maybe there's another angle to this.
Sure.
So with that, I'd like to challenge something.
Yeah,
Is that
bring
okay?
it on. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
As far as local, there's nothing you can do, right? Like if they're 20 miles away, like I'm not selling you into this. I know that you're gonna eventually, the traffic, the commute is gonna get in the way.
Right.
You're gone. Even if you say yeah today, it's gonna get in the way. I don't even want to sell that person almost, right?
Right.
Unless we're in a rural area where I'm literally the closest thing to you.
Right, we're in Chicago.
You're in Chicago.
Where, I mean, if somebody's outside of a mile, I mean,
It's-
unless they're
yeah.
driving and working next to you and they live somewhere else, yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, 100% understand. Now, when it comes to do they have the dollars to spend, that's something that I did want to challenge a little bit, because I've seen, so take Apple. Apple does a really good job of selling their stuff. Who's got the most expensive phone? Apple. Who's got the most expensive laptop?
Yeah.
Who's got the most expensive tablet, stylus, AirPods right now, earpods, right? They've got the most expensive everything. They're the largest company outside of Amazon, and I think it was Exxon. I think they're either second or third, right? But I know Amazon's leading. That's not because they only learned how to sell to the people with higher income.
Oh,
They've
I see where you're
learned,
going. I know.
right?
I
They've
know.
learned
Yeah.
how to sell. There's people that can't afford your membership that've got an Apple Watch. That's a $400 watch. That's a $400 watch. Think about
Right,
that, right?
right.
Like when I was in high school, I remember having a $50 watch and being bragging I got a $50
Like a
watch.
Swatch watch.
Like a Swatch watch. Yeah, something like that, right? And I felt cool, right?
Yeah.
Now you got high school kids wearing a $400 watch.
Right.
And they've got that paired up with a $1,000 to $1,500 phone. And they've got the tablets. And the difference is people will spend money on whatever. They'll find it. If they want it, right? That watch makes them feel a certain way. That
sure.
$5 coffee, $6 coffee, or that $7 burger makes them feel a certain way. I was at a studio. It was about a month ago when I was doing this big tour, right? And they had a lead come in, and of course I can't be a hypocrite. I always talk about the leads are priority. So even though they were talking to me, I was like, you got to take it.
Yep.
And I kind of stood there and was a bystander listening. And he was doing a good job of selling it, but he wasn't doing a great job. What he was doing was he was wanting to, the money was in the way. That was the issue, okay? And so he broke it down to it was like $8 a class, right? He's like, yeah, if you look at it, it's really $8 a class, right? Great way to bring it up, right? The problem is that now you're talking about the money. The money is the first thing that's in the way. So now we just keep talking about the money. So what I noticed, because I saw her get out of the car, I was like, hey, you mind if I jump in here? Like, yeah. I was like, hey, out of curiosity, what's the ultimate goal? What do you really care about? She was in her 50s, right? She's like, well, I got grandkids now and they're active, and I wanted to be able to be more active with my grandkids. And I was like, how important is that to you? She's like, really important. I go, did you pay for it? She's like, yeah. I was like, I mean, you got a decent car. I saw you come out of it. What's your car payment there? She's like $220 a month. I go, you probably signed a 5-year lease. Yeah, it's a 5-year contract you committed to. This is a 1-year contract for $190 a month. 1 year for $190. Now, if you tell me that car serves you better than the life that you just said, where you can be more active with your grandkids, tell me, and I'm okay with that. But I need you to tell me the truth. She goes, no, of course. I go, what he was talking about with $8 a class doesn't matter. You're paying a monthly membership to have the life that you just asked me for, and we'll get you there. So if you're okay with paying a monthly payment to get that life, then I want you here. But will you make it happen? She goes, I could make it happen. And I asked her one more time, if you were to make it happen, how would you go home and justify it? And she goes, yeah, I mean, I'm doing something good for myself. Exactly. So do this. Say yes, get signed up, take a few classes between now and the next couple days, and if after 2 or 3 days you change your mind, we'll cancel your membership out. Here's the thing, once somebody gets something, and once it's ran, they're okay.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like if you were thinking about buying a jacket, and it was a jacket that was, let's say, $300, and you're like, oh man, that's pretty expensive, and you're going back and forth, you're nervous all the way up until the point where you go to run the credit card, and then you find out it's $360 because of tax, and you're like, ah. And then all of a sudden you've run it and you feel nervous about it, and then you walk. And what's the first thing you want to do when you're walking in the parking lot?
You want to put it on.
You want to put it.
Like $1 million.
You forgot all about how much it costs, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same concept where once you get them to run their card, and once it's done, if that thing where you say, look, if you change your mind in 3 days, we'll give your money back. That has helped close so many sales. And will you get people to ask for money back? Yes, but the net customers gained, the net members gained by doing that is so much higher than if you just said, okay, I understand. If you change your mind, come back. Very few people change their mind within the next 3 days and say, you know what, let's do it instead.
I love that you said that too, because I think sometimes people are scared of that caveat of letting people out within 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is. They're scared of that, and they think about the exception of somebody that's going to pull out of a contract or come out and come back down after 3 days, but it's the exception, and it's worth the net.
Because it's scarcity, right? Most people live in scarcity,
right.
So they're afraid to lose more than they're afraid to gain.
Absolutely.
If you tell an employee, I'll give you a $1,000 bonus if you hit this goal, that isn't as motivating, or it doesn't hit them as hard as if you said, hey, if you don't hit this goal, I'm going to take $1,000 out of your paycheck. They're like, what? Are you kidding me? Right? It's they're less moved by the gain than they are by loss.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. So
scarcity is powerful.
So even if you gain, let's say, 10 members by saying yeah, most people feel more comfortable gaining only 2 or 3 members that never ask for their money back versus gaining 10 that have 3 ask for their money back. Even though it's a 7 net gain, that 3 loss makes them go, oh, we have a lot of people asking for their money back. Dude, it's not that bad. A lot of people just feels like a lot.
It's the same principle of as more and more places went to a month-to-month membership. And people are like, oh my gosh, people will cancel in droves. But you're also in the promise that you're giving the client that there's less commitment. You're hopefully signing more people.
100%. 100%.
So that's the big picture to it that I think a lot of people get hung up on sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So for everyone that's listening right now, go ahead and use the comments and just say, what are your thoughts on everything we're talking about so far? Are you liking the episode? And what takeaway have you gotten so far? Okay, you shot some trainings just now in the other room on how to run multiple studios and without you having to be there, which is great. And you attribute a lot of it to having really good SOPs. What are SOPs? And tell me why they're important.
Yeah, so standard operating procedures. You can come up with a more fun name than that, but that's something that's used kind of cross-industry. It's something in the software industry and employment consulting industry that I came from that was used there too. But it's really just a matter of documenting what your processes and procedures are, and it's so key that you're putting down what you want, how to do things step by step, and also the expectations that go with that, so that you don't always have to be there to communicate it, and neither does a manager, for example, or a lead. And it's really hard to free yourself up if you're not moving in a direction where things can happen without you being there.
Right. And
if it's not written down, how is it going to happen? Is it just, told from one person to another person, and that's a fable. that's a rumor. That's that's not an SOP that someone can replicate and that different people can replicate the same. So that's why it's super important.
Scripts and processes for everything are so important for professionals. Here's the thing: not everyone. I think everyone thinks they're a professional because they have a job. But just having a job doesn't make you a professional.
love that.
So if you think about the professional anything, right? The greats, LeBron James, right? And the Lakers. What's an example of their systems? Their playbook, right? It doesn't matter how good they are. They got the best player in the world in their team. He runs a play every time down the court on offense and defense. No matter what. It doesn't matter how much talent you have. In fact, the more talent you have, the more important your plays are because you can get more out of that talent. The best chef in the world, what do they follow? Recipes, right? Because they know they can get the same taste every time and they'll be able to get it done in the right time. If they just wing it, it's going to take them longer to cook that meal and it may not come out as good. They might probably burn their hand, right? Actors, they've got scripts.
Yep.
Musicians, they have music sheets and they have their lyrics. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. If you really want to be a professional, you have to appreciate scripts and processes like you've got in place.
And practice.
I
love the episode. Was it your brother or your cousin that you brought in from Jersey?
Yeah, John Paul. Yes.
God, I love that example because you took him from, he's in the tile industry,
Tile. He does flooring.
Oh, floor tile. I thought you were saying titles.
Yeah.
But I love that it just hit so close to home that you were willing to show what it took to take somebody who had no experience in something and spend 5, 10, 15 minutes, fast forward, here's what we learned. You showed that it's not super, it's not necessarily fast in terms of seconds, but within minutes, 15 minutes, you can make a lot of headway, and then he's able to overcome an objection that 15 minutes ago he couldn't have done.
100%.
And just the practice that you showed, like showing that real life example, I love that. Because
Thank you.
I think some people in studios, or what I'm seeing is that they go to learn a script or they go to teach their team, and everybody's kind of bobbling along and they're not getting it the first time, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, and they give up so early. And I think people just forget the value of practice. It's like our instructors have all these hours in teaching people and training people and coaching people, and why don't we expect the same from our front desk, from people that are managing our sales, that are really, that's the lifeblood of our studio. If the members we're getting, the members we're keeping, why are we not putting the same value on that role and the words that they're saying?
Right.
And again, the practice.
Well, the generation that, like, even my generation, right? Like anybody that's in their 30s right now, maybe even early 40s and younger, we grew up with parents that didn't want to be like their parents, and it was very positive motivation. But the problem is, most people don't know they weren't trained on how to be a leader. So what that means is they just are positive for everything. Honey, you're doing a great job. And
So
she
good.
didn't really do a great job. It was like mediocre at best, right? So now her definition of great, now when she really does it great, she doesn't know what the difference is.
Right.
So my daughter was playing the piano and it didn't sound that good. She was learning a new song and honestly, it sounded pretty poor, right? And she goes, Daddy, what do you think? And I go, you need some work. And she goes, really? I go, yes, but you're doing really good work. That type of practice, that you're doing great practice. The more great practice you do, the more great work comes out. But it takes a long time to be good at something, and it takes even longer to be great. And so now it's like the appreciation of practice. But I think so many people expect to just be good at something because they grew up in an atmosphere where their parents would be like, you're doing such a good job, and they're drawing crap. They're making this art, and it's like, it doesn't look good. But like, you're doing such a great job. It's not really that great. So now they go into a business, and they don't get, you're doing a great job, and they're like, this guy doesn't see my value. Yeah, because you don't have it. You don't have the value.
Not yet.
Yeah. So yes, practice. The cool thing is, like we talked about earlier, people love what they're good at, and you get good at whatever you train in, right? And
So true.
and so I love that you love that episode. And here's the thing too, I did mention in the episode, we went from, it was like a 10, 12-minute episode, something like that, where I started training them. But I didn't even give them a script. We started from scratch. But normally, I'd give a new employee a script beforehand. They'd understand the words, and now it's just about the delivery, right?
Yeah.
Okay, give me an example of a situation where you messed up, things didn't go well, and then how did you handle it?
Oh, I have a good one.
Okay.
We talked about this one before. You want to
Yes,
do that one?
that's why I asked.
That's what it is.
Yes.
You're like, I love that one. So one of my biggest learning lessons was when we rolled out a new policy at the studio, and it was that we weren't allowing people into the studio after a certain point in class, and we had to go to that for mostly safety reasons, but we'd also gotten comments from clients that it was really just, it was disruptive, like the amount of people that were just coming in whenever they felt like it. And we thought, because of the support we had from clients, that it was going to roll out and it would be fine. And I had written up how we were supposed to handle this some scripts to help deal with that a little bit. If we had to disappoint somebody and tell them, hey, you've arrived too late, it's not something anybody is excited to say, right? We gave plenty of time before we announced it, so people knew this was coming. But the week that it rolled out, we had to turn away somebody who showed up literally 5 minutes late for class. It's already going on and they're brand new, so we have no information on them. Didn't have them in the system, they hadn't paid for class, so all the things that you need, even just a basic waiver, we didn't have anything. And they happen to have a ton of injuries too. It was just kind of a recipe for disaster of just, we can't.
All the stars aligned for the wrong thing.
You just can't just throw that person in class, right? And at the same time, while the person at the front desk was dealing with that, we had an established client just slip in behind the new client and jump in class, which we shouldn't have allowed based on the new policy. So the whole point of that story is that I went into it thinking I had quote unquote documented enough, that I had kind of this SOP and enough things defined. And as it's getting relayed to me what had happened, and right about that time is when the Google review hit that was a 1 star out of 5, just lambasting us for being inconsistent and uncaring and all these things that I just, you guys, I know the business owners listening to this, like, you just die inside when you see that pop up on your phone. I mean, no matter where you are, if you're at dinner, you could be having like the time of your life and that 1 star review comes through, or the way somebody comments, and it just kills you. Because you know how much time and effort and money and blood, sweat, and tears have gone into that business, and somebody can just, rip you a new one like that. So I'm reading the review. I'm starting to get the text of like, hey, we're gonna have an upset client. I get the call from my manager, because now somebody else has called my manager saying, hey, this is what happened. And to be honest, and we had talked about this a little bit, my first instinct, unfortunately at the time, was I was really mad. I was really upset. I'm like, why didn't we handle this more consistently? Why didn't we handle it fairly? Why didn't they say different things? Because as I'm getting information, I'm trying to piece together how it happened. But what was more important out of that whole scenario was that before I lashed out or called anybody and got angry, I realized this comes back to me. This is me. I got to own this. And I think that's the biggest thing as a business owner. You have to realize that the buck stops with you. I know it's easy to say, it's much harder to carry out in practice. And it's a lot of character building. It's a big character building exercise in recognizing that there can still be a lot of margin for error, even when you think your best foot forward, or you've documented things as best you can. But really, just bringing it full circle, I looked at myself and I thought, okay, let me look at how I rolled this out. Let me look at what I documented. Sure enough, there were some kind of loopholes and kind of gray areas that I didn't really define super well when it came down to different types of clients and different types of scenarios. And that for me was a huge learning moment of, okay, I'm glad I didn't lash out at anybody. I'm glad I gathered the facts. 3, I'm glad I took ownership, because this is technically my fault and I can do better.
It's easy to blame.
Oh, it's so easy to blame somebody else. And I'm not saying you have to dog yourself for every single mistake, but we have to be honest with ourselves. And you can't just immediately turn on your team and say, hey, why didn't you do this better? I think it's a much better practice to first reflect on yourself. Did I set them up for success? I think we need to ask that question every time something doesn't go well. Did I set them up for success? Yeah,
and I'm assuming after that you revised your process or created
a process. Absolutely. Well, and we had talked about, I brought in the team and we talked through. We had a team meeting and we dedicated a section of that team meeting to just running through different scenarios and variables and talking about what's the fairest way to handle this, what's the safest way to handle it, what gives our clients the best experience. And so in doing that and getting everybody's buy-in, when there's more of a shared destiny of like, okay, we're all bought in, this is how we're gonna execute, we've role-played what we're gonna say, and it's a different experience than just throwing something on paper and expecting that it's going to be executed perfectly. Right.
Yeah, and that's how most processes are born. Revised processes are born out of something didn't go right.
Oh, for sure.
I remember a couple years ago I was at a hotel, and those sprinklers that are in the ceiling, they hang down.
Yeah.
There was a sign above it that said, "Do not hang clothes from these sprinklers."
I've seen those.
You see,
so somebody's
that
done
means
that.
someone, at least one, has done that,
Yeah.
right? Which is crazy. But you got to create a process for it.
Right.
Okay.
Can I say? I want to interject there. I just because things can go wrong and just because you eventually have to revise things, because you'll always have to revise SOPs, you shouldn't be scared for people who are sitting out there and don't have anything documented. Don't make that your excuse.
Right.
I have talked to people who are like, well, you know, for right now we don't know, so we need to leave it open. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You still know how things happen 80% of the time. I would say for most processes, 80 to 90% you can probably nail down, maybe even 99.
Right.
So don't let the 1 to 10% be the reason that you don't take the step forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally get that. Good point. Okay, few questions left I got to ask you. So one, you manage 2 studios. And how many employees do you have total at the studios?
We're at 39.
39. I'm assuming you have managers.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because that's what allows you to not have to run the studios, you
Absolutely.
own the studios. So when you're hiring your managers, do you have KPIs for them to be able to measure them and make sure that they're running their studios successfully?
I do.
Yeah? Okay. And what are a few KPIs that you hold them accountable to?
Yeah, so we always look at the revenue and profit of the studio each month. We look at new business, we look at leads.
Okay.
We also look at turnover of our team because they are leading our team. I am hopefully doing a good job leading them. They are hopefully doing a good job leading
They're happy.
the team. Yeah. So those are the key things we look at in addition to membership sales. So how many memberships have we sold each month? We look at new, but we also look at net.
Right.
So are we losing? What's our retention look like?
Love it. And do you have to find yourself having tough conversations with managers at times?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we actually just did a training where Susan went into a lot of this stuff. So if you guys wanted to dive in and see like a lot of it, go to loudrumor.com or you can call in 480-750-9774. We could talk about how you guys can have access to it because that's super important, is being able to really effectively get your studios managed without you having to manage, right? You also talked about you doing what nobody else can do in hiring for weaknesses. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, when I talk to business owners, a lot of times I see them hiring a lot of either the same people or kind of a duplicate of themselves. They're thinking, how do I literally replace myself in the business? And in doing that, a lot of times you have people, if they're starting a business, for example, like me, I tend to be a 30,000 foot view person. I'm a strategic person. I don't love a lot of details. I don't love the full execution of something. I like getting it started, giving it some definition, roll with it. I don't need to hire more of me.
Right. In fact, that's probably a bad idea.
If I hire more of me, there's going to be a lot of great ideas, a lot of things that get started, and nothing gets done.
Right. That's the difference between GSD and GSS, right? GSS is got shit started.
Got shit started.
Right. And that'll be if it was all us. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in Strength Finders, like 4 of my 5 strengths, top 5 strengths, are strategic. It's important that I know that. Like, you can't put me with other strategic people to run a business and not have people who can execute.
100%.
I need executors. So yeah, so my managers, my assistant managers, they are very strong in execution, and we work really well together.
Right. I love it.
So that was my whole point of just not being scared to hire for your weaknesses. Sometimes I see people, they put their ego forward and they're like, wow, that person's really good at marketing, or wow, that person's so much better as an instructor. See that a lot because sometimes people open their studio or their gym because they love fitness, they love coaching or instructing, but they want to be the top dog. And it's like, do you want that to be your legacy? Is that what you want to define you, or do you want to scale and grow and bring health and wellness to more people?
Yeah.
Because you got to figure out.
You got to get to the real goal. Like, what's the most important thing?
Exactly.
Last thing I want to ask you, because you mentioned this outside in the other room, you've had mentors and coaches, it sounds like. How has that impacted your life and business, and how important do you think it is for any professional to have a coach or a mentor?
Huge.
Why?
It's huge. Probably one of my biggest regrets, and I don't regret a lot of things, to be honest, I don't.
I've got a few.
Yeah, but probably if I had to pick like my top 5, one of those is that for a long time, into my early 30s, I thought I had to have all the answers. You know, I think a lot of times, now go ahead and say, I think sitting here, we're both probably high performers. We push ourselves. We're internally very motivated, intrinsically motivated to do our best. And I think a lot of times when you're wired like that, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to know the answers, to be right, to get it right the first time. And that can eventually be a very crippling place to live. And it wasn't until I started connecting with some really great mentors along the way that I was realizing the benefit I got from people who had done other things, done bigger things, screwed up a lot, and were willing to share that with me.
Right.
And it just opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, number one, I think on a big picture, from a big picture standpoint, we know we're not meant to do this life alone. And that's the same for business. So for you guys sitting out there listening to this, don't go at it alone. Start building out what I called my hype circle.
Yeah.
I love having people in my life, especially cross industry, so not necessarily all fitness, but I have people in my life right now from IT, HR, education, hospitality, that are all top in their businesses. They're such go-getters.
Right.
And I can go to them, I can take a problem to them or a challenge to them, and we can just vibe and brainstorm and kick it around. And I don't get stuck in that bubble of thinking I've got to figure it out by myself. And as a business owner, I think that happens a lot of times. And a lot of times we do it to protect our teams. We think like, I don't want to dump all this on my managers, which honestly, there's a lot of things you shouldn't. There's a lot of stuff you shouldn't just like bitch
Dump.
about. So you need those outlets, and some of those need to be constructive, hype circle, build me up, challenge me, tell me the truth. We had talked about, you also need those people, you know what, hopefully I can go here and you're okay with this, but just from a mental health standpoint, just seeing how much people put in their businesses, how much is on the line, how hard they're working and sometimes not getting the payoff. You might need to be seeing a therapist or a counselor. Get that person in your life so that you're not dumping on your team, so you're not dumping on your spouse or your partner. I think that support and just taking a strategic look of who's in your life and are you getting the support you need to really be successful is so incredibly important.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked earlier about like the Instagram quotes that I hate, right?
Yeah.
And so one of them was, failure's the best way to learn, right? It's the most expensive way to learn, not the best way to learn. And you can learn from failure. It just doesn't have to be your own, right? So I've said this on the show before. There's dumb people, smart people, and geniuses. Dumb people make mistakes and keep making them. Smart people make mistakes and then learn from them and don't do them again. Geniuses learn from other people's mistakes. Why don't we want to make mistakes in business? It's very simple, because we know it's going to cost us. Yeah. And the bigger the mistake, the more it's going to cost. But why don't we get a coach? Well, because it's going to cost us. Really? See, a coach has a price tag, but not a cost tag. A mistake has a cost tag, not a price tag. Two different things, right? So the coach may cost you money up front, but the cost that you save, I've had a lot of money saved by not making a mistake I know I for sure would have made, because logically this sounds better than anything else, but then they'll give me examples and angles of how that's actually hurt them in their business. And then of course, how to make money. I mean, you learn so much by somebody that's learned how to make more money than you're making right now.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, most people don't know how to make less money than they're currently making. If they're, that's why you see people that are broke. No matter what, they win the lottery, they're broke again in a month. And you get people that are rich and they can go bankrupt and they're rich again in the next year. Once you get your financial thermostat to a certain point, you can't really like deviate from it. You find a way to get back to wherever you're at. So the cool thing is when you have a coach whose financial thermostat hit a certain point, they don't know how to coach you in any other way other than getting you to their level. They can't even figure it out. And the best coaches are ones that have their own coaches, right? That's another thing. Who coaches you? Sure. That's one of my first questions when I have a coach. Who's your coach? Because otherwise, I'm going to hit your ceiling. I need your ceiling to constantly expand. So it's almost like I get a new coach every time I meet with you. You know what I mean?
No, it's great. Yeah, where are you getting your knowledge? What are you going to be able to share with me?
Yeah, where are you learning?
When we're, after 2 years, are we tapped out?
Right, 100%, 100%. Yeah. Cool. We got to wrap up.
All right.
But this is amazing. This
my gosh,
I know. So we'll probably do a round 2 somehow next time you're out here in Phoenix. Yeah. But thank you so much for joining. For everybody that was watching and listening, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you leave your comments and let us know your thoughts on the show. Leave a review. Subscribe to our podcast. Again, if you have any questions, call into 480-750-9774. Again, it's 480-750-9774. Visit loudrumor.com to get more resources, not just from Susan, but from other industry leaders that can help you grow your business. We just talked about how important mentorship and coaching was. Yes. That's exactly what we help you with. So, Susan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
What was your podcast name again?
What's Next with Susan.
What's Next with Susan. So, guys, check out What's Next with Susan to hear more from Susan on a weekly basis. Monthly?
Like every other week right now.
Every other week, but you probably have a lot of episodes you can catch up on.
Oh, yeah.
We
got a lot more coming too.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, or YouTube. And to watch more episodes and get exclusive links from each episode, go to gsdshow.com. Again, that's gsdshow.com.